Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following content is for educational and entertainment purposes only. What you're about to hear is a dramatized reconstruction based on publicly reported federal courtroom testimony from the Sean Diddy Combs trial as reported by Inner City Press. Ashton Kutcher, America's goofy heartthrob, the tech-savvy investor, the prankster with a charming smile, walked into a Manhattan courtroom on a humid spring morning. But he wasn't there to smile. He wasn't there as a celebrity. He was there as a witness. What followed was not just another day in court. It was a turning point in a scandal that had already shocked the entertainment world. With Diddy facing federal charges of sex trafficking, organized abuse, and criminal conspiracy, the courtroom was a battlefield. The air was thick with silence, anticipation, and when Ashton took the stand, even that silence seemed to tremble. This wasn't just about Diddy anymore. Ashton Kutcher, once a known member of Diddy's notorious inner circle, the so-called new Rat Pack, wasn't there to deny. He was there to reveal, and he did. What started as quiet testimony quickly turned into a cascade of admissions, not just about Diddy, about himself. About a culture that Hollywood has long tried to keep hidden behind velvet ropes and glossy PR. The prosecutor didn't waste time. "Mr. Kutcher, do you recognize this image?" A grainy photo appeared on the screen. Ashton glanced at it. His face, caught in candid laughter, a drink in hand. The background, dim, exclusive, and unmistakably Diddy's. "I do," he said. "That was 2009, Diddy's White Party." The first thread had been pulled. What followed unraveled far more than anyone expected. This wasn't about distancing himself. It was about exposing a truth no one wanted to say out loud. A truth that had been whispered in private circles for years. A truth Ashton Kutcher could no longer ignore. This was the day he broke his silence. The silence didn't start in that courtroom. It started years earlier. At rooftop parties, in gated mansions, aboard yachts drifting just outside camera range. Ashton Kutcher, then a rising star and a household. Name was everywhere. His charm opened doors. His tech investments raised eyebrows. And in Diddy's world, he was golden. But behind the champagne and flashbulbs, something darker was forming. As Ashton spoke, it became clear he hadn't come to clear his name. He had come to confess. "I was part of it," he said quietly. "Not the worst parts, not directly. But I didn't walk away. I didn't ask enough questions." He described the early days of the so-called New Hollywood Rat Pack, a group that included Diddy, Danny Masterson, Wilmer Valderrama, and himself. What began as wild nights and Hollywood glamour slowly morphed into something far more controlled, curated, and eventually corrupt. At first, it felt like brotherhood, Ashton explained, like we were building something no one could touch. But then it got weird. The parties became rituals, the guest lists got shorter, and the rules got stricter. NDAs became standard. Phones were confiscated. Entire wings of properties were off limits to most guests. Ashton, like many others, signed documents without reading them. Too trusting, too complicit, too willing to believe it was all harmless exclusivity. But it wasn't. There were whispers, moments he couldn't unsee. He recalled an event in 2010 when he saw a young woman being pulled aside by a handler. She looked scared. He looked away. "I told myself it wasn't my business," Ashton said. "I laughed things off. I believed the lies we all told ourselves, that everyone there wanted to be there. By the time the media started to circle, it was already too late. Photos resurfaced, emails leaked, timelines collapsed under scrutiny. Ashton's PR team worked overtime, but nothing could erase what had already happened. Now, under oath, he wasn't protecting his past. He was exposing it, and the courtroom sat frozen. Not just because of what he saw, but because of what he ignored. The silence had protected them all. Until now. The prosecutor's tone shifted. They weren't just verifying old memories anymore. They were digging. "Ashton, do you recall this clip?" Another screen flickered to life. This time it was a dimly lit video from 2013. The setting was one of Diddy's homes. Music pulsed faintly in the background. Laughter echoed. And then a voice. Ashton's. "I don't think we should be filming this," he said. Another voice, off camera. "Relax. It's all taken care of. They already signed." The courtroom froze. That single clip changed the temperature in the room. Ashton exhaled deeply. "I remember that night," he said. "I didn't know the cameras were rolling." The prosecutor leaned in. "Who were you referring to?" Ashton paused. His eyes scanned the courtroom, eventually landing on Diddy, who remained motionless. "Guests," he answered finally. "Some were models, some weren't. But they weren't told what was going to happen. Not really." The air grew heavy. The idea that people had been lured into events under false pretenses wasn't new, but hearing it confirmed by someone like Ashton Kutcher was seismic. And it wasn't just about that one night. Emails, security logs, photos, videos. Ashton's name was on all of it. The prosecutors laid it out in layers, showing a pattern that blurred the line between association and involvement. When asked why he never spoke out, Ashton didn't offer excuses. "I told myself it wasn't my fight, that I hadn't seen anything illegal. But deep down, I knew I didn't want to know." He admitted to signing multiple NDAs, attending dozens of invite-only events, and knowingly walking into rooms where people had no idea what they were about to experience. "There were teams," Ashton said. "People whose job it was to manage the experience, collect phones, hand out waivers, direct guests to specific areas. They made it seem normal, like it was just high-end hospitality. But it wasn't normal, it was orchestrated, and Ashton had helped build the illusion that made it possible." As the courtroom absorbed his words, the story took on a new shape. Less about wild parties, more about premeditated manipulation. The curated brand of Ashton Kutcher, the likable star, the tech guru, was peeling away. And underneath was something far more complicated. Something far more complicit. By the fourth hour of testimony, the courtroom no longer felt like a courtroom. It felt like a confessional. Ashton's voice grew quieter, but his words cut deeper. He was asked about the term "freak off," a phrase long rumored in blogs and whispered behind closed doors. Now it was part of the legal record. "What is a freak off, Mr. Kutcher?" He looked down. "It's an event," he said. "Private, exclusive. Phones were taken. Some guests were blindfolded. Sometimes it was presented like performance art, but it wasn't." He described his first one, 2005. He thought it was a themed party, brought a date. Within 30 minutes he wanted to leave, but he stayed. "There were rooms," Ashton said slowly. "Rooms you didn't go into unless someone tapped your shoulder. People looked scared. Others acted like it was normal." He mentioned hidden cameras, security staff who moved silently, and a host of unfamiliar faces who didn't, seem to be part of the Hollywood crowd. Then came the digital evidence, emails from Diddy's team, security access lists, Ashton's name on a digital guest list with the label, "Green Light." "It meant I was trusted," he explained. "It meant I could go anywhere." He paused, visibly shaken. "I didn't know what I'd done to earn that, but I knew what it meant." He was asked about NDAs, how many he'd signed. "More than I can count," he said. "Some were 10 pages. One was 28. We were told it was about protecting talent and privacy, but really it was about protecting silence." The courtroom listened in stunned silence as Ashton detailed one party after another. Nights that once seemed glamorous now retold as cautionary tales. He spoke of yacht gatherings where influencers were flown in and given scripts. "Some thought they were at a branding event," Ashton said, "but the cameras weren't just for promos. One prosecutor read from a recovered message, "Keep them calm until we start." Ashton closed his eyes. "That was me," he admitted. "I thought we were running a photo shoot. That's what I was told, but now I'm not so sure." The silence in the courtroom felt physical, like the room itself was holding its breath. Ashton went on to describe how asking questions could get you uninvited, how one friend vanished from the scene after speaking up, how being in meant turning off your conscience and playing your role. "You rise by not seeing," Ashton said, "and you fall when you start to look." He admitted that his silence was never neutral, that he didn't just ignore red flags, he helped distract from them, by smiling, by posting, by lending legitimacy to something broken. "I thought I was untouchable," he said. "I thought we all were." But now, in this room, stripped of cameras and filters, Ashton Kutcher wasn't untouchable. He was exposed. The courtroom shifted from the surreal to the strategic. Ashton Kutcher, once viewed as the harmless celebrity-turned-investor, began detailing a complex network of influence, finance, and silent partnerships. This wasn't just about wild nights anymore. It was about infrastructure, how entertainment, business, and control merged in plain sight. "In 2009, Ashton began, I started branching out. Tech startups, venture funds. I thought I was ahead of the curve." He wasn't alone. Diddy had already laid the groundwork. Ashton described being introduced to international financiers, nightlife moguls, and shadowy brand consultants through Diddy's network. They weren't just party promoters. They were architects of something bigger. It wasn't about hosting events, Ashton said. It was about monetizing access, creating circles within circles. He admitted many of his early investments overlapped with companies later linked to Diddy's foreign business arms. One investor, later identified through federal records, was tied to multiple shell companies flagged for suspicious international transfers. "Looking back, it's all there," Ashton said. "But at the time, I just thought, this is how deals get done." He went on to describe apps, branding agencies, even tech firms built around nightlife experiences. Places where influencer data was collected under the guise of promotion, names, locations, biometric information, all harvested quietly, then sold or funneled into marketing databases. "I didn't understand how deep it ran," Ashton admitted. "I should have asked more questions, but I didn't want to lose the access." He recounted one pitch in 2016, a talent matchmaking app with a sinister twist buried in the pitch. Deck was a slide about discrete background checks, real-time psychological profiling, and user segmentation. "It made me uncomfortable," Ashton said. "I passed on it, but I didn't report it. I didn't warn anyone." He described boardrooms where celebrity endorsements masked silent investors, where consulting fees were used to quietly funnel money across borders. In one case, a startup Ashton had backed was discovered to be storing user data in a server farm operated by a Diddy-linked security firm. "I'd been told it was standard," he said, "but nothing about it was normal." When asked why he hadn't spoken up when discrepancies emerged, his answer was blunt. "The money was too good, and I was afraid, not of losing fame, but of losing protection." Ashton explained how quickly doors could close in Hollywood. One wrong move, and entire projects would vanish. Executives would ghost him, investment rounds would dry up. "It's not paranoia," he said. "It's policy. You're either inside the machine or beneath it." He described a moment in 2017 after declining a new investment connected to a known associate of Diddy's. Within days, a tabloid story surfaced. One Ashton swore had been buried years before. "That's when I knew," he said. It wasn't coincidence, it was leverage. By now, it was no longer about morality, it was about survival. Ashton wasn't just navigating deals, he was dodging landmines. And as he detailed the layers of silent compliance he participated in, his voice remained steady, but his eyes gave away something heavier. Regret. Deep, permanent regret. By the time Ashton Kutcher reached the final stretch of his testimony, the courtroom was holding its breath. This wasn't just a celebrity unraveling. This was a man dismantling his own legacy, brick by carefully measured brick. He spoke about the turning point. It started in 2020, Ashton said. I'd spent years managing optics, interviews, investments, curated appearances. But I wasn't managing truth. I was hiding from it. He described the pandemic as both a pause and a reckoning. With Hollywood on hold, the distractions dried up. He was home, alone with his thoughts, alone with his silence. I started scrubbing everything, he said. Photos, emails, cloud, backups. I even shut down companies I hadn't touched in years. I was trying to disappear from something I helped create. But the system didn't forget. In 2023, federal agents showed up at one of Ashton's business properties. They had a warrant. They wanted footage, travel logs, internal communications. Ashton didn't fight it. I gave them everything, he said. Not because I was brave, but because I was tired. The headlines followed. Social media erupted when an old video resurfaced. Ashton at a Hamptons party, co-hosted with Diddy. In the clip, influencers were being ushered away by handlers. Ashton's voice is clear. Just keep them calm until we start. That wasn't what it looked like, he told the court. We were running a branding shoot. At least, that's what I was told. But the damage was done. Sponsors dropped him. Investment partners severed ties. Mila, his wife, reportedly confronted him. She begged me to walk away years ago, Ashton said. I didn't listen. He described having to explain to his children why news vans were outside, why strangers were yelling. I didn't have answers, he said. I was still trying to find them myself. One story haunted him. In 2022, his wife received an anonymous envelope. Inside was a photo of her with their children and a single line, a clause from a contract she'd never seen. It wasn't a threat, Ashton said. It was a reminder that even if you leave the party never leaves you. The courtroom remained still. He recounted how Danny Masterson's scandal became a catalyst. When legal heat began closing in, old allies started turning on each other. Diddy distanced himself. Wilmer Valderrama vanished from the scene. And Ashton felt the walls closing in. He detailed PR campaigns designed to flood the media with fluff, strategic donations, red carpet appearances, carefully timed interviews. It wasn't about telling the truth, he admitted. It was about buying time. He remembered a call from 2019. Danny was panicking, he said. He told me if he went down, he'd take people with him. I asked who. He just said, "You know who signs the checks?" The message was clear. Everyone had something to lose, and silence was the currency they all traded in. But now, Ashton wasn't trading anymore. He turned to the judge and spoke with unflinching clarity. Your Honor, if you need anything, emails, records, names, I won't fight it. I've spent too long fighting for the wrong people. And just like that, his testimony ended. Not with a dramatic twist, but with a slow, painful collapse. Not of a man, but of a myth. A myth.